You are about to enter the fantasy football show. Please stand by like a boss. Estás entrado al fantasía fútbol novelas. Espera con el patrón. Smitty is live Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Get on-demand one-on-one text advice with Smitty at thefantasyfootballshow.com.
You are about to enter the fantasy football show. Please stand by like a boss. Estás entrado al fantasía fútbol novelas. Espera con el patrón.
Get on-demand one-on-one text advice with Smitty at thefantasyfootballshow.com.
You are about to enter the fantasy football show. Please stand by like a boss. Estás entrado al fantasía fútbol novelas. Espera con el patrón. Smitty is live Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. You are about to enter the fantasy football show. Please stand by like a boss. Estás entrado al fantasía fútbol novelas. Espera con el patrón. You are about to enter the fantasy football show. Please stand by like a boss. Estás entrado al fantasía
Live from the fantasyfootballshow.com studios. It's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Order in the court. Order in the court. We will be doing and commencing a little fantasy football court in a little bit, but I have a ruling, and this ruling is crystal clear and full of fact. It is Trey Lance season. Officially.
From the fantasyfootballshow.com news desk, here is your breaking news.
It's Trey Lance season, baby. It is Trey Lance season. And I know a lot of people out there are going to say, he's young. He's got a lot to prove. It's going to be a season where he's got to, endure some ups and downs. There's going to be some good and some bad. Let me tell you something about sophomore quarterbacks. This isn't your mom and pop's fantasy football or NFL anymore. This is an NFL where college quarterbacks come out ready to rumble at the NFL level. Even wide receivers. Remember back in the day when like Larry Fitzgerald would come out? It was year 3. Des Bryant, it was year 3. You didn't have wide receivers walk onto the field and become Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. No one's saying this rookie class has those monsters, those fantasy machines. in this wide receiver class. In fact, I'm not super high on this year's 2022 wide receiver class. What I am high on is the running back class. This man right here, Kenneth Walker, we'll talk about in a minute. But these rookie quarterbacks coming in, so Trey Lance last year, they're ready. Burrow, 10 games, tore his ACL, looked good in his 10 games, comes in and takes the league on by storm as a sophomore. You got Justin Herbert coming in as a rookie and being coined the GOAT by our community. And yeah, we throw GOAT around a little bit recklessly at times, but we enjoy ourselves. We have a good time, so don't take offense to it when we talk about a little Justin Herbert action. But quarterbacks come into their own in their sophomore season. What a quarterback does during their sophomore year, often now in today's NFL. Stop talking about back in the day. Your quarterback sat, Smitty. When A-Rod sat, it helped him. I don't want to hear about the past, okay? In today's NFL, in your NFL, not your grandma's NFL, not your grandpa's NFL, not even your dad's NFL. In today's NFL, what you do as a sophomore, it resonates. It echoes in eternity. Like in Gladiator, as a sophomore, you know what you are. You are who we thought you were. And Trey Lance is going to ball as a sophomore. Not to mention that he has the best surrounding and supporting cast of any player that I've ever seen walk into a starting job with this amount of raw talent and this good of an offense. The surrounding talent is absolutely phenomenal. Trey Lance could drop top 5 to 7 quarterback numbers. Now, this is nothing new. Your boy Smitty's been pumping this out for months and months. But the fantasy football world wasn't ready for it. They're worried about Jimmy. Constantly worried about Jimmy. Saying, but what if this? What if that? What if Shanahan decides to roll with Jimmy? Why is Jimmy on the roster? Well, today, Shanahan finally put the obvious to rest, which it kickstarts all the Trey Lance hype. 60 to 80 people bouncing in and out of here. Please punch that thumb up button. We've got 34 thumbs up. 34 people have taken their shoes off and wiped their feet at the front door. That's it. Kyle Shanahan comes in and says, we moved on to Trey. He made it crystal clear. There were like 4 or 5 quotes that made it crystal clear that it's Trey Lance season. You don't go back. You made it clear as of last year that this would be Trey Lance's season. There's no ambiguity or obscurity or anything going on with this quarterback situation. It is Trey Lance season coming out of Shanahan's mouth. A guy who never says anything because he wants to keep everybody on their toes. It's such an advantage not telling everybody what's going on. That's Shanahan's usual tactic. And even right now, he didn't use it. He didn't try and linger this out. He wanted to make it clear. He wanted clarity. It's Trey Lance season. I want everyone to know is what Shanahan basically said. 70 of you in here, 46 thumbs up. Keep punching it. Trey Lance is here to stay. He's going to be an absolute monster in 2022. It's going to be right out of the gate. I don't want to hear any complaining about why didn't you scream loud enough, Smitty? You always tell me when there's a breakout, why didn't I see this? I talk about it all the time. And yeah, maybe I do talk about it too much on occasion. Some people say, Smitty, you talk about Lance a lot. Smitty, you talk about Hall a lot. You talk about Burrow a lot. But sometimes I've got to scream from the rooftops. I do enough lives and I go live for a long enough period of time. I'm talking about other stuff, okay? Just because I might repeat a couple of the points that I think need to be hammered home quite a bit, it doesn't mean we don't enjoy ourselves here on the Fantasy Football Show. We take phone calls. Who box draft more than your boy Smitty? Who takes more phone calls than your boy Smitty? Who answers more voicemails than your boy Smitty? So I have a little leeway to come and beat a dead horse on the Trey Lance topic because today is National Trade Day. Today is when Trey was finally released into the fantasy football ether, and this guy's going to absolutely explode. He's on his way to the moon. He is part of the Moon Men.
The Moon Men, dropping loads in outer space.
Space Monsters.
Space Monsters indeed. Indeed, young man, Trey Lance is here to absolutely drop loads all over the field, in space, on Earth, in the atmosphere, wherever he chooses to do so. It is Sir Lancelot, Trey to the Bay, King of the NFC. It is Trey Lance time. Oh, Smitty, did you just call him King? Oh, Smitty, that's cute. Smitty just called him King of the NFC. You can't do that. I can. And I just did. But you can't. Yes, I can. But he hasn't even. Doesn't matter. But Smitty, it doesn't matter. It's my show. Trey, king of the NFC. How does it feel? How does it feel to hear me say it? But Smitty, you can. Yes, I can. And I did, and I'll continue to. It's uncomfortable predicting things that haven't happened yet. That's the nature of this thing that I do. The prediction business. It's uncomfortable until it happens. It's very uncomfortable. Guess what? Welcome to the party. Welcome to fantasy football. Welcome to the fantasy football analyst environment. And if you're not on board, you're not on board. Don't try and be halfway on board. There are some people that follow me that say negative stuff about Trey and then try to pretend like they're a Trey supporter. If you're not on board, you're not on board. Plain and simple. And your receipt's been taken and you can't get on later because the Trey Lance train will be full. It already is full. We're heading toward Mars on the train. Yeah, the train flies. We haven't thought this out very clearly, have we? But the train is on the way to the moon. And it's Trey Lance season. Get ready for it. It's here. It's official. Joe Burrow. A little concerning just to see our boy Joseph Burrow, Joseph cigar smoking Burrow. Whenever this man isn't smoking a cigar, and whenever he's on his way to have surgery, we get a little concerned. But this is his appendix. It won't be a big deal. A lot of people suggest it could be days and maybe weeks that he doesn't, exert himself and try and, do too much. But like a couple weeks, we'll be fine. Joseph Burrow will be fine. Appendix, he might even be lighter on his feet without that extra couple ounces of weight holding him down. This man is going to be speedy, shifty. He could take an appendix shot and he won't feel it next time. That's a good thing. Let's go ahead and celebrate Joe Burrow.
Mashed potatoes!
Yep. What a big season this guy's going to have. The number one or number two. The only reason I can't say number one with clarity is because we get confused. Is it Breece Hall? Is it Burrow? I don't even know. Who's the best pick in fantasy football 2022? It's either Burrow or it's Hall. I go back and forth. I kind of think the number one is whoever I'm talking about at the moment. So right now, Joe Burrow, number one pick in fantasy football 2022. Not number one overall. Not number one overall. What do I mean by number one pick? I mean he is the best value, the best bang for the buck. You're taking this guy in the 6th round. If you take him if you take him in the 4th round,
You've just been Smitty disapproved.
of course, my system's like delayed right now. I've got to try and quit and close this real quickly. Maybe this will help. Joe Burrow's the best pick in fantasy football 2022. Why? Because he's going in round 6. Why? I don't know why. The appendix, maybe this bumps him down a little bit. Maybe someone says 6.1. No, he's got an appendix issue. I'm going to take him at 6.4 maybe. Maybe his value drops a little bit. It's certainly not going to go up because of the appendix surgery. It can only go down or stay the same. But Joe Burrow is the best pick in fantasy football 2022. So we're not drafting early QB, says Prodheim. Look, Hod Prime. Prime, this is early QB to a lot of the negative Nancy's and fantasy Karens out there, bro. They consider Joe Burrow round 5 or 6 early quarterback. So to the standards of all the crazies out there in bizarro world that think you can't win a league going early quarterback, the regurgitated fantasy analysts telling you over and over, pass on a quarterback when they don't even know the draft board, when they don't know who's on the board when you're on the clock, that determines whether you take a quarterback. We draft best player available around here. Okay, you can draft however you want. You're not stuck doing that, but the people that are big followers and advocates of the show have come to love the best player available approach. And that can lead you down a path that will give you Josh Allen. That will lead you down a path that could give you Justin Herbert. But in cases where Breece Hall is available in round 4 and you forego the Burrow approach because Hall is a better pick, if you see somebody in round 3 that's just a better option like ETN in late round 3 instead of Josh Allen, then you're going to go down that route. But anybody saying Joe Burrow in round 6 is a risk worth not taking is literally stuck in a mentality of not changing the game plan, cementing themselves into an approach they do not decide to detour from. And I feel bad for those individuals because they won't experience the Joe Burrow effect. The Joe Burrow effect. What is the Joe Burrow effect? The Joe Burrow effect is winning a league. That's what it is.
Mashed potatoes!
I'm going to experience the Joe Burrow effect up and down my fantasy leagues. Around the corner, up, down, left, right. Joe Burrow is going to be on so many of my fantasy leagues, especially Best Ball, which all of you can go partake in by going on over to the link in the description, Underdog Fantasy, using promo code Smitty. And if you too decide you want to dominate using a lot of these guys we talk about over and over and over, like Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf's falling to round 5 and 6. DK Metcalf is falling to round 5 and sometimes round 6 on Underdog Fantasy. Get on over there. Use promo code Smitty. The link is in the description, or you can click on thefantasyfootballshow.com. Go to thefantasyfootballshow.com. The banner's in the top corner of the site. Click on the Underdog banner. And literally use the link in the description. Play Underdog. Do it. Take advantage. Kenneth Walker, round 7, 8, 9. DK Metcalf, 5 and 6. Joe Burrow in freaking 6. Sometimes Herbert falls to 5. Sometimes Herbert is a good value at 4.12. But don't listen to all these people that talk about how you can't take a quarterback early. Don't listen to anybody that says you have to take a quarterback early. Don't listen to anybody that says you have to do anything, because anybody telling you have to do something, anybody that says you should never take a quarterback early, or you should always go running back, or you should never go wide receiver, anybody telling you to do something without any consideration to your draft flow and the board that's sitting in front of you does not need to be listened to, because they're wasting your time. They're garbage analysts, in my opinion, not looking at the board, not telling you to, hey, take it with the flow of what's going on. Is Justin Herbert at 4.10 a bad pick? What if there are no other good options on the board and you're forcing a player you don't even like? You're telling me to walk away from Justin Herbert at 4.10 because you're supposed to wait, because the quarterback position's deep. I've heard it over and over. I love when people try and come in here and fantasy-splain me and tell me, Smitty, let me break it down to you. Smitty, I've got it. I know you haven't heard this before. Where are my Tua goggles when I need them? Smitty, I know I don't have them. Where are my Tua goggles? I lost them. No. I don't have them. Oh, well, pretend I got them on. Smitty, I love when people come to me and they say, Smitty, let me explain this to you. I know you've been doing this for 20 years, but you may have not heard this. But if you wait on a quarterback, the quarterbacks are so close together, Smitty, that if you take a quarterback late, there's not a big difference between the quarterbacks at the 12 spot and the quarterbacks at the 5 spot, Smitty. So if you wait, technically you're going to have a good deal. Everyone continues to tell me that like I'm a complete moron. Like I don't understand what time it is. Listen, you cannot compare apples to oranges. If you draft a quarterback, let's say Justin Herbert at 4.10, because there are no better players on the board that even come close to Herbert's impact for that draft slot, meaning he could be the number 1 overall fantasy football scorer and you're getting him at almost 5th round value. If somebody comes in and tells you because the quarterback position's deep, because Aaron Rodgers could be drafted as the 8th quarterback and be 25 points away from quarterback 5, who cares? Who cares when you are deciding that Herbert could be the number 1 overall quarterback and the number 1 overall scorer in fantasy football? Now, if you don't think that about Herbert, then you wouldn't obviously take him at 4.10 because you don't like him or believe in him. If you think Joseph Burrow at 5.8 is a little bit of a reach because you think he could fall to 6, you've heard Smitty tell you, wait till 6 if you can, but you're at 5.8. The flow of quarterbacks is going off the board. He's the top quarterback available on the pre-rank list. It's 5.8. You don't think he'll last to your 6th round pick. You pull the trigger. And somebody says you could have waited for a Brady later. Who cares if you believe Burrow's the number 1? What someone thinks about how quarterback 8 or quarterback 10 scores based on last year comparatively to the number 6 quarterback. Doesn't matter if you feel a certain way about the quarterback class this year. You need to draft with how you see fit for optimal scoring. And if you're sitting there at 4.10 and the best player on the board by a mile is Justin Herbert, and you don't want to force a Deontay Johnson onto your roster, and I know a lot of you might have just said, wait a minute, did he just say he'd take Justin Herbert over Deontay Johnson? Absolutely. Do I look like a moron? Do I look like a moron? Would anybody in their right mind take Deontay Johnson? Deontay Johnson? What's up, Bap? What's up, Nicholas? What's going on, Bap? What's up, Highlight? What's up, Prime? What's up, Ward? Would anybody in their right mind take Deontay Johnson over Justin Herbert? Probably not in my community. Probably not in my community. There are some people that will take Deontay in the 3rd round. There are some people that think you can just carry over last year into this year and start having this guy continue to be peppered with targets with potentially a quarterback change, a guy that struggled to build rapport with his quarterback, Big Ben, a guy that was known for peppering targets to one player over and over and over. He did so with AB, and when Big Ben went down, AB vanished from fantasy football wide receiver 1 production. I don't know if some of you know that. I don't know if some of you were even playing fantasy football when AB was in his prime. I don't really know, but what I can tell you is that AB vanished when Big Ben was gone. When Big Ben went down, AB vanished. He wasn't even a high-end wide receiver 2. That's not a knock on AB. It's a knock on how wide receivers survive in this offense without, in a Tomlin offense, without Big Ben peppering them with targets. If anybody thinks Trubisky comes in and he feeds Claypool, feeds Deontay, feeds Najee, feeds Freiermuth, feeds Pickens, feeds everybody, you're out of your mind. If you're gonna pay that price tag, could it happen? Sure. Do you step back from a far above place and say, yeah, maybe I will invest in Deontay at 5.1? Sure. 4.10? Maybe. But who in their right mind's gonna take Deontay Johnson in the third round? It's like taking Fournette in round 2. Worst picks in fantasy football. Fournette in round 2. I've been telling you that from the start. I was shocked when I found out Fournette's ADP lived in round 2. I was caught off guard because I know ADP like the back of my hand. You tell me a player, I'll tell you their ADP. Although, there's a lot of different ADPs out there now. There's best ball ADP. There's sleeper ADP. There's ESPN ADP. And I can kind of tell you, give or take, where a guy might fall. I was absolutely floored when I found out that Fournette had breached round 2, that everyone out there that wasn't in my community was drafting this man as a second drafted player, a disappointment-prone guy like Leonard Fournette, walking into camp 260 pounds, walking into camp dropping footballs, walking into camp doing similar disappointing things, doing Fournette things like he's done in the past. If you're going to bank on Fournette, be my guest. I don't mind a 4th round selection, and that's where I would put him. I can't believe that 3rd round would seem like a steal to people, but 2nd round is absolute asinine. I wouldn't go near it with a 100-foot pole. Not even come close to it. I don't even know where I went. I went on a sidetrack of all sidetracks. We were talking about Burrow. We were talking about Lance. I don't even know where I am at this point. I feel lost. I feel like I completely confused myself going into rant mode. Trey Lance season, Burrow appendix. I think we got those 2 topics out of the way. The one next thing I want to talk about is Kenneth Walker. And the thing that's kind of driving me nuts right now is the fact that people are starting to raise his expectation level up because of Chris Carson's retirement. Look, now is not the time to start pumping his ADP up. It finally leveled into a 7, 8, 9 round range, which is a steal. We're winning leagues on that puppy. We are winning leagues on the back of that value, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about some of the best value in fantasy football 2022 is Kenneth Walker. Number 1 is Breece Hall in round 4. That wins leagues. That's number 1. Number 2, Joseph Burrow in round 6. I could even go back and forth on which one of those is the best value. Burrow in round 6 might be number 1. Hall in round 4 might be number 1. I don't know. I love them both. But now I'm starting to think Kenneth Walker is going to continue to climb, and I'm fearful of that because we just got him settled into 7, 8, 9 round ADP very comfortably. You can get him around 7. You can get him around 8. You could probably get him around 9. Chris Carson was a non-factor. He was never going to play football again, or if he was never going to stay healthy because he's an injury-prone player. Prayers up to him. This is not a knock on him at all, but he was an injury-prone player with a neck and spine issue with like a disc and like a 3-piece like metal plate in his spine holding his vertebrae together. You think he's gonna go out there and take and fend off and hold off Kenneth Walker or Rashad Penny? It's not gonna happen. Penny and Walker were clearly above Carson, and Carson was probably never gonna play football again. Probably never, ever get starter carries again. And people are now actually reacting to Chris Carson's retirement. And they're talking about Kenneth Walker. Finally, Kenneth Walker. What do you mean, finally, Kenneth Walker? This is the time you're going to come in and ruin his ADP. We finally got him to fall, which was frustrating to see in a way. I got to admit, I'm kind of frustrated. I kind of do want to see his ADP fall. Like, deep down inside, I feel he's getting disrespected too much. And getting him in 7 to 8, 9 round value, while it's great from a fantasy perspective, it's very disrespectful to our boy Kenneth Walker. So part of me wants him to climb back up, just so it's disrespectful. It's completely disrespectful. But Chris Carson shouldn't be the reason that everybody's triggering to send this man up in ADP into round 6 and maybe even to round 5. I have a feeling that everybody's going to be absolutely all over Kenneth Walker in upcoming mock drafts. Taking him around 5 like clockwork again. Taking him around 6. You guys are reacting to, the world is reacting to news it shouldn't be reacting to. He was already worth a 5th or 6th round pick. But we didn't need to tell anybody because everybody's sleeping at the wheel. So nobody go out there and start drafting this guy higher and higher and higher. Please, I don't want anybody sending his ADP back into round 5 and 6. At least I don't want anybody on our side of the fence to have anything to do with that. Walker's season's coming. We're going to steal him away from everybody over and over and over. He's going to win leagues for people. And there are people that really don't know how good this kid is. Walker, let me put something into perspective for you. Walker averaged 6 yards per carry and 4.1 yards after contact per carry across his 84 man gap attempts. He racked up 506 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 27 first downs, and had a 91.8 rushing grade according to PFF. A 91.8 rushing grade according to PFF. That is a phenomenal rushing grade. We're talking about that being in like the top, let's see if I can find the exact rank. We're talking about that being around the top 5, I believe. Highest rushing grade since like 2014, 2015. You had Najee Harris, I think, at 91.8. Dameon Pierce is the highest Pro Football Focus rush grade. And I used Pro Football Focus the other day, and everybody got all, Schmitty goes off Pro Football Focus. I rarely spit out stats from Pro Football Focus, but once in a while, it's pretty good information to solidify and validate what you already think. Nobody should be taking a stat from anybody and saying, oh, this stat says he's going to be great. Use it to validate your already good opinions on a player. Okay? Already good opinions on a player. And in the case of Najee, his 91.8 rush grade by PFF, which is currently the 3rd highest since 2014 for NFL running backs. That tells a great story. Number 1 on Pro Football Focus's list is Dameon Pierce, the Houston Texans rookie running back. And I have to say, I did an Instagram post on him. Him, Rachaad White, Tony Pollard, Tyler Algier. These are guys that I absolutely love. Sleeping giant monsters in 2022 fantasy football. Absolutely love it. What's PFF, huh? Oh, man. It's got some good stats and some bad stats. And sometimes people, and everybody does it, you use some stats to kind of hammer home your point, right? But when those stats are very good stats, when you're not digging deep into a stat like, oh, on 3rd downs when the wind's blowing left and he's had his bowl of Wheaties that morning of, he has the most rushing yards in the history of that scenario. Like, when you're talking about a rush grade that they use over and over and over, it's a pretty reliable stat. Najee Harris, 91.8, whatever. There are some good stats, rushing grade stats that tell a good story. When you have a player that ranks, number 1 in yards per carry on the year, like that's not a pro football focused stat, that's just a stat. Those stats are very good stats to look at. They're very big, they're very surface level. They're not deep in finding little weird ins and outs of a stat or a category that tells a certain story the way you want to tell it. These are very, very top level stats. Like example, Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel was number 1 in the NFL in yards per catch. He was number 2 in the NFL in yak yards, yards after catch. Number 1 and number 2. And people argue Deebo is not a good wide receiver. They say Deebo Samuel's a wide back. He does not good enough in the wide receiver category, Smitty. That why should Deebo get a big contract? Isn't Ayuk better? No, Ayuk's not better. Isn't Ayuk a better route runner? No, he's not a better route runner. Isn't Ayuk a better pure wide receiver? No, he's not. This is hogwash garbage. You don't know what you're talking about if that's what you're spitting out of your mouth. Deebo Samuel was number 1 in the NFL in yards per catch, number 2 in yards after catch, yak yards. He was like number 1 or 2 in 20-plus yard receptions and 40-plus yard receptions. He's literally in the top 1 to 5 in every single wide receiver category. He was like number 4 or 5 overall in yardage. Without you take his 300 rushing yards out, he still was top 5 in yardage, receiving yards. And people have the audacity to step in and say, Ayuk, who hasn't proven yet. Ayuk, who hasn't proven it yet at all, who I like a lot. I love Ayuk. I talked about Ayuk before anybody in the Niner community that I go on the Niner shows with even thought about him because he's from Arizona State. I talked about him. I said this is a guy the Niners should target. They should target Trey. They should target Ayuk. I'm like a scout for the Niners somehow, some way. I'm a Cardinal fan, and here I am, scouting for the Niners. I love Ayuk, but he's no Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel's number 1 in the NFL in yards per catch. How do you do that on short dump-offs? If you're not good, if you're not the best route runner, if you're not the best player on the team, if you're not just the best weapon, but you're the best route runner, you're the best wide receiver, pure wide receiver on the team, how do you take short dump-off passes from a quarterback that can't throw the football 12 yards down the field? He can only throw a foot long like his Subway commercials. And this guy literally with short dump-offs led the league in yak yards, or is number 2 in the league in yak yards, number 1 in yards per catch. You get the reverse out of that. When you get short dump-offs, it affects your yards per carry down, your yak yards down. It hurts you. Your boy Smitty's been talking all day. My voice is getting shot. Maybe I shouldn't yell so much. All right. Anyway, enough of Deebo. I don't need to go down the Deebo track. I don't need to go down all those tracks. Ayuk going to really low an ADP. Look, this is where it gets confusing for some people. Here I am ranting and raving right now about how Deebo is heads and shoulders above Ayuk in every single statistical category. Route run, everything. I don't care about how you think Ayuk's going to do. Ayuk hasn't done it yet, so if you want to be predictive with it, fine. I still love Ayuk. I still love Ayuk. I still think Ayuk's going to have a big year. Is that a knock on Ayuk? No. You know what people are going to say later when I say Ayuk season? Smitty, you were saying it was... No, you weren't listening. You weren't listening. I love both of them. Trey Lance is going to be able to feed both of them. Trey Lance is going to be able to knock it out of the park. Trey Lance is going to feed 2 guys 1,000 yards. Deebo Samuel is going to have 13, 14, 1,500 yards receiving. Ayuk's going to have probably 1,200 receiving. He could have a little more than that, and Deebo could step back and still get a bunch of wide back roll. Don't even tell me Deebo is not playing wide back. Okay? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. People are out of their minds with that. People are speaking for Deebo Samuel, and people are actually buying into it. Is he going to play running back in 2022 like he did? No, he's not going to play running back. Don't confuse wide back and I don't want to run the football. Those are completely different things. People blur the lines between wide back and running back. Deebo played running back. When the running back room got injured, he lined up behind the quarterback. He ran up the A and B gap. He got hit by 300-pound linemen, smashed into the ground. That is not wide back. Wide back is out wide. Like the description of it. Running back is behind the quarterback. Deebo's not going to do that anymore. No one wants him to do that anymore. But guess what? He's playing wide back. You think he's going to turn down getting the football? Get out of here with that. He is going to go absolutely bonkers again in 2022 if he stays healthy. Trey Lance can facilitate and feed both of them because the yardage is going to go up through the moon. He's got a cannon. This guy's going to air it out. I don't care if people think that Shanahan's going to try and hold him back. You can't hold back greatness. And you, of course, your goal is to unleash somebody slowly. And maybe they do run the ball effectively. They get up and they start running the football. But this guy's going to improvise his way into monster plays. Trey Lance is an improviser. When things break down, Jimmy G would crumble, fall, and get sacked. Or throw an interception or fumble the ball away and have 20-plus turnovers like he did last year. Trey Lance, 0 INTs. Trey Lance doesn't turn the ball over very often at all. Trey Lance makes excellent tuck and run decisions. And if a play call breaks down or if Shanahan calls a bad play, guess what? Trey gets to improvise his way and get the team out of trouble. That's what makes Trey and Shanahan such a good marriage. You have an offensive genius in Shanahan that has a tendency to make bad decisions, especially from a personnel and coaching perspective, but he's tied to a quarterback that can feed into all of his weaknesses and carry Shanahan. Like Jimmy G got carried by the team, Jimmy G was carried by the team. Shanahan can be carried by Trey Lance at times, and it's going to be a wonderful marriage made in heaven. These two. Axe with the super chats to Smitty. Your thoughts on the Bucs signing Julio? Look, is there a world where Julio could still potentially have a little bit left in the tank for a short period of a season? Maybe Brady somehow gives him touchdowns. He's never had touchdown production before. I mean, he's had like 4 touchdowns in a significant stretch of time. Like he has no touchdown production. And Matt Ryan was able to give some wide receivers some touchdown production over the years. So it's kind of a little bit of an enigma why Julio was so bad at scoring touchdowns when he was still getting fed. You know, it was crazy how his touchdown production was so lacking. Maybe his yardage is low and his touchdown production goes up or something like that. Like it's going to be weird to see how it unfolds. The biggest problem for Julio is how on earth is he going to stay healthy? How on earth can Julio Jones stay healthy? It's not going to probably happen. If he's used in a way where he's going to be fantasy effective, that means he's going to be fed a lot. He's going to be on the field probably too much for his body to stay healthy. So I don't think it's going to work out is basically what I'm going to tell you. But is it possible he does well for a short period of time and looks good and then gets hurt in week 5? Like weeks 1 and 2, oh my God, Julio. And then he gets hurt week 3, he's out for the year. Like that's what happens when you're 33, 34, 33, 34 years old as a wide receiver, especially if it was a running back, even at 27, 28, 29. 27, 28 is now equivalent to a wide receiver being 33, 34. It's very, very close. 30 used to be the running back age of decline. 30, you could maybe do well when you turned 30 and went into a season. It was a crapshoot. But when you turned 30, it was like the death of you. It was the last year. You were lucky if you had one more year. Lucky if you had one more year. And now it's 27. You go into your 27 age season or 28. Look at Derrick Henry. You're lucky if you have this 1 year left. You're lucky. That's the way it is for the running back in today's NFL. And you can equate it to a lot of different things. You can equate it to that the game's faster, stronger, bigger, tougher. You could equate it to that same premise being played out in college, in high school, in Pop Warner. So a running back is taking maybe, let's just call it arbitrary, 1/4 more abuse by the time they get into the NFL. And that means that once they're in the NFL, they're more worn down on average than they would have been back in the day. And that's why the age drop off is now 28 instead of being 30 or 27, 28. This is Derrick Henry's last elite year if he can stay healthy. And I know a lot of you think he can last till 30, 31 years old. He's built different. Being built different is going to bring him down. So if he does have that one last year, he is lucky because he's entering that same territory where players drop off. At wide receiver, the reason I even got on that topic is at wide receiver, Julio's well into that drop-off age. So even if he looks good, he will look good and get hurt. There's no way he can produce at an even close to like elite wide receiver 3 level in that offense and stay healthy for very long. So good luck with that. Ron sending Smitty throat lozenges through a super chat. Thank you, Ron. Definitely feel like my throat is dying. I've been live so much over the last couple days. And today, this is like the third, this would be like 5 straight hours of live streaming that I've had today, between this and Instagram. And Sir Lance, the king of the NFC, Niner by nature, you knew this day was coming. I told you this day was coming. The way that everybody's talking about Trey now, I knew that day was coming. It's Trey Lance Day, baby. It's Trey Lance Day. Derek Lincoln, appreciate your super chat. Just a thought, but what if Julio Jones played tight end? I mean, that's a good concept, Derek, and maybe it gets kicked around. I don't know if he can handle the abuse of the position, if he's going to play a true tight end position, if he's going to play just a tight end that goes out for passes. Yeah, but can he block? Like, do you really want him at his age trying to lay a block? Because you're going to have to block sometimes. Otherwise, you're just playing wide receiver split out, so it doesn't really matter. I think it's more of like, is he the third wide receiver rotationally? Does Gage and Evans, are they the 2 wide receivers always on the field, and then Julio comes in and out? That's probably what's going to happen. And maybe he scores 5 touchdowns on the year. Maybe he scores 7 touchdowns and has like 300 yards. Like, we don't really know. It could be one of those weird situations where Julio gets 3 straight games with a touchdown in week 1, 2, and 3, and then goes out for the season. Like, I can tell you right now, we can actually play this back. Somebody can screen grab this if they want. Okay? I'm saying it at 41 minutes and 53 seconds into the show on July 26th. That Julio Jones will be randomly, like, he'll be kind of banged up or something, and then all of a sudden we'll hear about more of it, and then all of a sudden, middle of the week, it gets worse, and all of a sudden he's out for the year. Like, that's what happens with Deshaun Jackson. It's like, he looks really good. He's still so quick. He's still one of the quickest players in the entire NFL. Comes out, has a really good game, looks his old part for like 1 game. Then you hear about some kind of little nick, like, oh, he's got a little hamstring thing. He's sitting out. And then by the end of the week, it's like he's out for the year. Like, that's how quickly the body breaks down when you're 33, 34 years old and you try and go out and play a young man's, game. And you got the extra game. It's tough for NFL. You're trying to run, your old body and joints can't keep up, and the competitor in you makes you go 100 miles an hour, and when you go 100% on a body that can't withstand it, you will get hurt. He doesn't know how to play at less than 100%. No NFL athlete does. You've been playing at 100% your whole life, and when your body can't hang, it will get injured. That's why Zeke Elliott's probably a very likely candidate to get hurt in 2022. That's probably why Derrick Henry is a very likely candidate to get hurt in 2022. These guys don't know how to go at 95%. It's 100%. That's why Barkley struggles. He goes 110% every time he touches the football. That whole ankle injury, you have people that say it was a freak injury. It wasn't a freak injury. Like, he sprained his ankle because of his running style. If you watch the play he sprained his ankle on last year when he was kind of trying to come back from the ACL tear, he literally tried to walk over his lineman. He wasn't patient with his block. He was trying to get the extra yard. He was going at 100,000 miles per hour, and he's literally stepping on his lineman trying to get through a hole that wasn't there because the guy, and it's a great skill to have in a way, or a great character trait is to have that 100% never slowing down mentality. But there are certain players that are prone to injury based on their style of play. There are certain players prone to injury when they get older and they don't know how to adjust and adapt to their body, and they try and go 100,000 miles per hour like Deshaun Jackson. This is what's going to happen eventually to Tyreek Hill when he starts to drop off a little earlier than anybody ever anticipates, because he goes 100,000 miles per hour. And once his body starts breaking down, he will continue to try to go at 100,000 miles per hour, and he will also have hamstring issues, soft tissue injuries. And at some point, Tyreek Hill is going to just be out for the year. Like, let's hope it's not this year. I think he's probably still got another year or two before that happens, but it will happen sooner than the average player because the guy has the quickness and speed where he doesn't shut down. His hamstrings are firing off differently than other players. Dude is quick. Your hamstrings, they give out at a certain point when you're trying to do that kind of speedy shifting, running, stopping, starting. And so expect that in the next couple years, maybe a year and a half, where we start worrying about Tyreek Hill. That's why Waddle has a little more dynasty appeal, in my opinion, than Tyreek Hill if you're in a dynasty startup today. Scotty with the super chat. Appreciate you, Scotty. Scotty dropping a question here. Lenny down to 245, says Silver. Yeah, and that's so, I mean, if that's even true, we don't even know what's what, right? People are reporting stuff left and right. But it's not a healthy drop in weight for an older player. So Lenny's susceptible more than ever to injury right in this moment. Right now, while Lenny's at practice, he's susceptible to some kind of hamstring tear, some kind of quad tear, some kind of calf strain, some kind of groin injury, because his body has been put in a vulnerable position trying to drop from 260 to 245 in a very quick time frame when he's getting older and it's harder to do. Leonard Fournette is right now at risk of having some kind of injury, more so than he would have had he shown up to camp in shape, ready to go, realizing there's a backup running back breathing down his neck named Rachaad White, who's one of the best pass-catching backs to come out of college in the last decade. This guy said, I'm here to start, and Leonard Fournette said, I'm here to show up overweight and drop footballs. That is not motivation to me. That is a player putting himself in a vulnerable position, and we'll see what happens. 245, good for him. Hit that thumb up button. 90 if you have done it so far. 170 in the room. Scotty with a super chat. Scotty says, do we think Chris Carson retiring changes, I think you mean Penny's ADP, not Perry. Do we try to avoid it at a cost of the 5th or 6th round? Again, I already covered this, Scotty, and I appreciate you asking it. I'm not ranting and raving on your super chat. I appreciate your super chat. And I appreciate the question, because you know what, Scotty? Whether I get frustrated with it or not, people are continuing to ask it. So clearly people need the information. So I can be frustrated with it all I want. Doesn't really matter. I need to address it until I stop getting asked the question, because my people need to know the answer. Does Chris Carson have anything to do with Penny or Walker? The answer is no. This is not to you, Scotty. I appreciate you. I'm yelling at the topic. Carson has nothing to do with it. He wasn't going to play. Like, how is Penny affected now? If his ADP climbs, I'm excited. I'm here for it. I love it. I love if Penny's ADP climbs because of that. It is irrelevant. And the fact that people are actually going to maybe draft Penny higher now because Chris Carson, who had a plate in his neck, if I can find this graphic and show you, you're going to be blown away by why anyone's even questioning whether this had anything to do with the values of these two gentlemen. It's absolutely crazy to me. If I find this graph, here it is. This is Chris Carson's neck. And prayers up for him. Prayers up for him. First and foremost, prayers up for him. I want nothing but health for him. But this guy, look at that. You can't expect a man to play with that in his neck. That is in his neck, holding his vertebrae together. And people were actually worried that he was going to come out and even touch the workload or timeshare of Penny and Walker. It has nothing to do with it. It's irrelevant. Okay, so the question is, do you think his ADP changes? Scotty, I think it's a great question, because I think it does. I think people literally, I was here when you showed us that graphic, right? I think literally people will jump a whole round, a whole ADP, bro. Just like when Gronk retired, which had no real relevance at all to Mike Evans. Gronk is an injury waiting to happen. He's probably going to come back anyway. The moment Gronk retired, Mike Evans climbed from 3.5 into the bottom of round 2. For what? For what? Nothing changed. McLaurin, This is why I studied psychology. This is why I bring psychology to the fantasy football show. The human condition, the mind, the human beings out there. Sometimes I feel like I'm an alien. I don't even understand the human beings sometimes. Human beings don't even value McLaurin past a 4th round pick. He signs a contract extension. Now, do you notice McLaurin lives in round 3? He lives in mid to late round 3. He was a 4.5 to 5.2 draft selection over 2 months ago. And now, because his name is being mentioned and a team's giving him money, that must make him good. I'm going to draft McLaurin. He climbed to the middle of the 3rd round, to the middle of round 3, after signing a contract extension where no one mentioned anything about more usage or anything. People are so quick to react off anything in front of their face, and Chris Carson retiring makes people draft Penny a round higher. Almost guaranteed, Scotty. You're 100% right. I never went after Penny anyway, so I'm not going after him now with an increased ADP. I hope Walker's ADP doesn't climb more than a half a round to a round, which I fully expect it to do, because I'm still drafting Walker no matter what, but I'm going to take advantage of where his ADP is. Gronk will come back. Yeah, he's probably coming back at some point. So that's why it's so funny that people react to Evans. His ADP climbed. His ADP climbed a lot. It climbed actually a lot. I mock draft all the time. It was not in round 2. And now it's in round 2. And it's kind of jumped back and forth. Sometimes it's in round 3 again. But it's crazy, bro. It's absolutely crazy. Agree on that one, Smitty. Ridiculous. Wow, Swaggy's agreeing with me. That's crazy. Chris Carson ADP was already low. He was undraftable. I just don't get it, Derek. I don't get it. How does that have anything to do with Penny? Anything to do with Walker? If anything, one could argue that this is worse. Chris Carson being on roster unretired was better than them going and acquiring a more healthy running back. You know, what if they make a trade now? Or what if they go and sign a player that's way more capable, that's on waivers or whatever? They could trade a 6th round pick or a conditional pick of some kind that means nothing for a running back. You know, like they could bring in, I don't know, they could bring in a Chuba Hubbard or something. That I'm not saying he's gonna take anyone's job, but like he's worse than a player that can't play. You know, why is everybody rooting for this? I don't understand. Ron with another super chat. Wad on screen. Godwin ADP going to rise to, I bet, now that they cleared him to practice. Here's another thing. Ron, good topic. Godwin is not going to be healthy all year long. This is another one that it makes me scratch my head. How on earth a person can take Chris Godwin in 5 or 6 round territory is just unbelievably hard for me to understand. Godwin won't be healthy for week 1. If for some reason he plays, he's one of the more injury-prone wide receivers in the NFL. If some reason Godwin plays, he's going to get hurt. That is almost a certainty coming off an ACL tear, which oftentimes leads to hamstring injuries your first year back. Why on earth would you take Godwin in the 5th or 6th round when he probably won't be ready for week 1? Even though he was cleared, being cleared does not mean he's ready. It means right now they're clearing him to get back to as much of normal as he can be and get to, and see if they can rise him up and get him ready for week 1. If he plays, he'll get hurt because he'll be rushing it. He's not ready for week 1. He's not ready for full go football. And if Godwin plays early, I guarantee you, Godwin's going to miss almost every practice in the beginning of the year, if not all the way through the whole first half of the year, where he doesn't practice. He sits out and he swells up. Guys, I may not be a doctor, but I'm the best deep fake doctor on the internet when it comes to fantasy football, and especially relating to knee injuries. Your boy Smitty has injured it all. Right here in front of your face is a knee model. When you tear your ACL, the natural instinct of your body is to release swelling to protect it. It swells it up and mobilizes it like a cast. That's why you have swelling. The whole purpose of swelling to begin with is to react and safeguard the injury. Swelling is there to protect. Why do you have swelling? Because you're rushing it. If you go back out onto the field as a professional athlete and say, I'm an athlete, I need to get out on the field, and you go out on the field on a newly recovered ACL that is not done healing, this joint is not used to the smashing and bruising together, the meniscus is gonna be affected as well. Your whole knee is not as stable as it was pre-injury. It can't be. Why can't it be? Because you're only allowed to do so much at a certain period of time. Your ACL is drilled into place. If you tear your ACL, okay, it flops around like a rubber band on one side of it. If you tear it at the top or you tear it at the bottom, it's like a rubber band. It snaps and it just sits there in between. You can't even sometimes bend your joint right here, because if your ACL is in there, it gets caught, and it's the most painful thing in the world. When I tore my ACL and it was flopping around in there like a rubber band, when it floated underneath the joint and I tried to close the joint, it was like someone hooked up electric cables to my balls and literally put it on high. That's what it felt like when I went down on the ACL. I was like an electric shock through my body. When you have your ACL torn, they cut it out, okay? So now the ACL, which you can see the PCL and the ACL, they cross each other. The ACL comes out, okay? You tear it. They cut it out. They drill a hole in this joint. They drill a hole in this part of the joint. They then go to your patellar tendon. They used to use cadaver tendons, meaning they go into a dead body and cut out the ACL and use it as a cadaver tendon, a donated tendon, ligament. And they put the ligament in there and it would heal quicker because it already had the shape and form of an ACL. But in the case now in today's medical world, and this is what I had done, they cut a window out of your patellar tendon in the middle so that it's kind of like, tongue piercing. You pierce your tongue and you take the tongue ring out and your tongue will heal because the injury's in the middle of the tongue. If you cut a window out here of your patellar tendon and take that little piece out, it will tend to heal back and kind of fill in the hole. And so they take that and they drill that into your joint. They drill a hole here, they drill a hole here, they put the new ACL, which is actually a patellar tendon that dies and turns into a ligament, and it takes time for that process to happen. It has to die, it has to then turn into a ligament, and it's drilled into a hole, and they drill screws into the hole, and then the ligament that turns in, the tendon that turns into a ligament grows into the screws, and it makes a real tight fit. That takes time. If you go out there too early, here's your ACL, it will re-tear, it will slip out. There's certain time frames that you can do certain things when you tear your ACL. So that's why a guy can't be 100% at a certain point. When you tear your Achilles, it's the same thing. That's why Cam Akers rushed back, and he's going to suffer another injury because of it. You can't rush the healing process because you want to get back on the field. Chris Carson won't be 100%. He won't be. His body can't physically be 100% by week 1. It will take him until next year to get to 100%, and he'll be lucky if he escapes 2022 without further injury, hamstring or ACL or knee related. Let's go to the phone lines.
It's voicemail time. Drop a voicemail at the Fantasy Football Show on the gram. Tell your grandma.
We are going to the voicemails. Voicemail number 1 is by none other than, let's see here, none other than Kevin.
Hold your horses on Julio Jones. Smitty, let us know about what you think about Julio Jones, bro. And then I seen Chris Godwin got cleared for training camp. What's your thoughts on this, Smith?
Yeah, well, you heard me so far. I gave an answer to both of those in a nutshell. In case you missed it, in one sentence, I'll say Julio is going to be probably a non-factor. Maybe he does something for a little while and then gets hurt. But if he's not used to the point where it hurts him, he won't be effective anyway. So it's a double-edged sword. As for Godwin, I just explained it in tremendous detail. Kevin?
I got a question too. Why does every single piece of news fluctuate people's values. Like, for example, I see Kenneth Walker flying up draft boards with the news about Chris Carson today. I also see, like, Deebo being retracted just because of the contract concerns. What is it about the news that affects people emotionally?
It's like I said earlier, bro. It's the psychology behind it that interests me, and it's entertaining. But, bro, people are reactive, and you got to look at it as a positive. We, as a fantasy football community, have to look at, okay, what can we take advantage of? That's the whole point of strategy in this game. And when you see, like you said, Deebo, people are down on Deebo. Time to go trade for Deebo. Maybe time to even trade for Kenneth Walker before his value climbs, because now people are going to be more high on him. Joe Burrow having appendix surgery might decrease his value a little bit. It's crazy how reactive people are. And being cleared, Godwin being cleared, people think that means he's good to go. This was like Barkley. People just blindly believing Barkley was fine. People blindly believing that Mike Thomas was good because you didn't hear anything. Then he showed up and he didn't have surgery yet last year. And then he needed surgery. It's like Mike Thomas right now. You aren't seeing any evidence to show you that Mike Thomas is going to return to form. And Barkley, we need to see a little bit more. Am I comfortable with what I have heard and what I have seen, the little bits and pieces that I have seen and have heard, to say that Barkley's worth a third rounder? Absolutely. Like, I'm fine with that. I'm not against that at all. But second round value, pump the brakes until you see more.
So Madden rated Tom Brady at 97, Aaron Rodgers at 96, Patrick Mahomes at 95, Josh Allen at 92, and Justin Herbert at 88. What on a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a job did Madden do grading these players this year?
Yeah, Herbert, it's garbage. I mean, Herbert 88 is ridiculous. He was not only, and I know that everybody says his fantasy is different than the NFL. It's not that different. Fantasy and the NFL pretty much go hand in hand. You rarely have a Troy Aikman. If anybody in here was even old enough to understand what I'm saying. Troy Aikman was a really good quarterback, but very bad fantasy football quarterback. It's rare to ever have these things not line up anymore in today's NFL and in fantasy football. And for a bunch of grown men in suits that probably came up with these ratings together that know literally dog crap about value and upside and projecting what's going to happen. This is ridiculous. Like, you can't put Trey Lance at 95 because it hasn't happened yet, but you can know, okay, Trey Lance needs to be in the 80s, not the 70s, because the upside's there, and the moment he pops off, we'll do an update, but we're going to put him at a respectable rating that shows we're being a little preemptive. Herbert was the number 2 fantasy football quarterback, and arguably, in a lot of people's eyes, the second or third or fourth best NFL quarterback last year. To not know Herbert's a 95 or higher is just like, it just proves it shouldn't even be taken seriously whatsoever. So I hold no weight on the Madden ratings at all, and I think every single one of those individuals should be fired. And I feel like anybody that was involved in the Madden rating, the person that usually did it must have passed away. We're thinking of the families of the individual that must have been in charge of this, because there's no other explanation than the person that had this Excel sheet that had all the numbers on it died, and his phone was locked, and they couldn't get in it. And so they called Bob down from accounting. They said, Bob up in accounting, can you please come down here? You are now in charge of handing out the Madden ratings. It's all up to you. They gave Bob about 15 minutes to come up with these numbers, and this is what Bob came up with. That's the only explanation, because no person employed by ESPN or EA Sports or any respectable news or sports organization could possibly muck up Herbert at 88. You just can't get worse than that. That's the dumbest rating I've ever seen. Yeah, rest in peace, whoever must have passed away over at EA Sports, because EA Sports is not in the game. Bruce.
Dr. Smitty, what do we feel on Joe Burrow getting his appendix removed? And how long do you think Joe Burrow will be out? Thank you, Dr. Smitty.
I think Joe Burrow's appendix would get an 88. The appendix they're removing from his body would have got an 88. I'm not worried at all. This seems like a very, very low-key situation. Very, very low-key situation. It could be days, I've heard, and it could even be at the most weeks. Obviously, he doesn't want to push it, but I would definitely say that he's going to be 100%. There's not even a question in my mind. The only thing that would worry me is some kind of weird, crazy infection, which you always worry about. So that's where the worry comes from some freak infection or something crazy that no one's ever thought of that would happen. That's the only thing that worries me. I'm not worried at all about anything. Burrow's not even a risk to miss time, let alone he's going to miss practice. He's not going to miss any kind of sort of time at all from everything I'm hearing. It's not a big deal.
Hey, Smitty, what does Julio signing in Tampa mean?
We've gone over that enough. Ask another one, Bruce.
Hey, Smitty, got a big one. This would be a 3-team trade. I'd come away with Breece Hall and Rashad White for Akers, Elijah Mitchell, Hendo, and Keenan Allen.
So Breece Hall and White.
And Rashad White for Akers, Elijah Mitchell, Hendo, and Keenan Allen.
Mitchell, Hendo, Keenan. So Hall and White for Akers, Mitchell, Hendo, Keenan. Hall and White for Akers, Mitchell, Hendo, Keenan. God, that is a lot, because Mitchell and Keenan are really good. You know, in Akers, you could, even if you didn't like him, you know, you can trade him for a boatload. So I don't know that. Thank you, mods. My mods hit things so quick. I was going to take care of that, and you guys took care of it for me. I think you're giving up too much. I feel like you should be able to give up less. I like Hall and White. I like Hall more than everyone on the board, but Mitchell, Keenan, and Akers is too much talent. I kind of feel like if you're trading Hall and White for that, is what maybe you're saying. It's weird that I just said give up less, but I also can't pull the trigger because I don't like trading Hall at all. I hate the idea of trading Hall. But Mitchell and Keenan Allen and Hendo and Akers, I mean, I just think you could turn that into a lot more. I'm keeping Hall, bro. I'm keeping Hall. I just can't do it. I know it's a lot of talent. I just can't do it. I just, like, it's weird because if you were acquiring Akers, Mitchell, Hendo, and Keenan Allen, and you're giving up Hall and White, I don't know which side you're on. I'm gonna attack it from both sides. I can't execute the trade to get all that talent for Hall and White, but on the flip side, I couldn't do it either. I think I just can't move Hall. I can't move Hall, and as much as I want to say Mitchell, Akers, and Keenan are better, and they are, I have to trade. I wouldn't be happy with the way that looks. You don't know how long Mitchell's going to be in his role. He could have that. He could be removed from the job in a year or half a year. Keenan Allen's getting older. I'd probably say I'm still leaning Hall and White. I'm still leaning Hall and White. That's a tough one though. That's a really, really tough one. Bruce.
Hey, Smitty, with the news of CEH being on the PUP list, what does that do for Rojo and the other Kansas City Chiefs running backs, and how far does Clyde drop because of this?
Yeah, well, let's pull up the Clyde news and put it on screen. Some of the information right now people are going to overreact on. Don't overreact too much yet on who's going on the PUP list. And sometimes teams are moving things around. And if a player's not going to be around for certain activities, let me pull up Clyde Edwards-Helaire here and put the news on screen. This is the Clyde information. Screenshot taken. Here we go. Chiefs place Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the active PUP list. We have no real news on what his injury is at this point, but that's the headline you hate to see from a player who's really would have benefited from a good camp this season. There's been no reports on the injury for Clyde Edwards-Helaire so far this offseason. Ronald Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Ronald Jones is Clyde Edwards-Helaire's main backup. Andy Reid should provide an update on the situation soon or about tomorrow, they say. So there's nothing really to go on yet. It's not good. You know, it'd be much better if he wasn't on the PUP. I don't know what he's suffering from. I don't know if this is a new injury, what this has to do with the last injury that Clyde had. If I look back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had, I don't even see the most recent injury even listed for Clyde. Shoulder. That was the last thing that I saw when I scrolled back through all of his news. But it's a little early to panic, but it certainly isn't great. But he still knows the offense more than anybody. So if it drops his ADP into like round 7 or 8, that could be a good thing. You know, if he's in round 8, then the risk is really low.
I heard it's Trey to the Bay. I seen it on your show. But how come they won't give Jimmy G his freedom then? Just cut him, release him, let him go to any team he wants. They have to get a trade.
They're trying to trade him first. Nobody wants him, though, but they're trying. And that's why they haven't released him, but they will. They will, bro. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, this one's from Kyle.
Hey, Smitty. What's the most astonishing thing you discovered from your psychology background on how humans think when it comes to trends and dips as far as fantasy goes?
I think people are scared of what other people think. So just like in the pre-rank list, if the pre-rank list says that Breece Hall is the 10th running back ranked and you're on the clock, there's a pressure for you to worry about what others think. And so you won't likely take him. That's why when you are 10 picks away and a player's the 10th running back ranked, you have all the other positions mixed in there. There's really little chance that someone in the next 10 picks will take that player. If the running back, let's say Breece Hall, is sitting there at the top ranked running back spot, the pure pressure involved in that suggestion that if you don't take the guy that ESPN or Sleeper or whoever, wherever you're drafting, if you don't take the suggested guy, you could be laughed at. People don't like being laughed at. And so pure pressure is a big, big factor in why people make the picks they do, why they don't make the trades that they maybe want to make, why they make the fear of getting made fun of. I think that's a big part of fantasy football that needs to be explored more, and we do that on the show with the psychology. Also, the trading, just the psychology of the trending, the fact that like when McLaurin's in the news signing a contract, he climbs an ADP because it gives validation that he must be good if the team's willing to pay him this high dollar amount. Plus, it also triggers a lot of people out there to maybe write an article or a news blurb that then reminds people, hey, he could be a wide receiver 1, and just being in the news at all refreshes your memory about that player and triggers new content to be written about that player, and it's a cascading effect. I guess more importantly, I would say the psychology trend that I feel is the most head scratching to me is injury, and how people are not cautious with injury at all. I'll draft injured players. I'll draft an injury-prone player from time to time. I'm not against all injuries, but I'm against it when the cost is not discounted. If you've got a guy like Mike Thomas coming off an injury, he's not proven to come back, or in the case of Barkley, I don't understand why I don't think it's a discount in 2.5. I think that's paying what Barkley would likely do on a full season in that offense where he's got vultured touchdowns from Danny Dimes. The offense isn't going to move the football down the field very well. A lot of 3 and outs. Barkley will be effective if he stays healthy, but he's still at 2.5 type of guy. And so without any kind of discounts tied to injuries, that is probably the most crazy thing that I feel like I notice in fantasy football over and over, is that blind, no understanding of the injury risk and why you should be avoiding a player when there's a historical trend of injuries, or in the case of like an Achilles, the historical trend that no one has ever come back, and yet people just want to be, okay, I'm going to be positive and root for this player. That's fine, but don't root for him at a 3rd or 4th round value. Akers in round 3 or 4 is a death sentence to your team. It's an absolute travesty for your team when you take Akers in round 3 or 4. It's just not a good look. And I think a lot of people, if I was to give any advice to everybody out there in terms of fantasy football, is adjust and adapt. A lot of you are too set in your ways is when you make a prediction or a statement. And I suffer from this too. We're all human beings. But when you make a statement like, oh, this player is going to do well, and then evidence piles up, like case of Fournette. all the negative stuff that's been coming out of my mouth on Fournette. And there's a few people in here, and I appreciate you, and don't ever change if your gut tells you you love Fournette, okay? I want to make that clear. Like Brian's in here. Brian, if you love Fournette, don't worry about it. I appreciate you, and I respect your viewpoint. But I am a little confused as to when you hear a lot of negative stuff and then more negative stuff comes out, and it's like there's no detour at all. Like, the most negative stuff could come out known to man. The most negative stuff could come out about Fournette, and I guarantee you the Fournette truthers will just ignore it instead of being like, okay, I'm going to be a little more cautious now. Like if Zeke Elliott truthers out there. If Zeke Elliott truthers out there, we got a $20 super chat from Russian Collusion.
Let's go, mashed potatoes.
Yeah, buddy. Appreciate you, Russian. If something negative came out on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like I'm seeing it, I've got to adjust and adapt. I'm excited for him in one way, but I've got to adjust and adapt. I've got to say, you know what? Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked like a pretty decent 7th round pick. Now, I'm not going to draft him at the top of 7. So, you know what I'm saying? You got to be able to take the negative news a little bit better and let it shape your future opinion. Don't let your old statements and hard-nosed stances make you stay firm in your stance no matter what news hits you. That makes the best fantasy football owner on the planet, is when somebody can come in and adjust and adapt. And so, like when they drafted Rachaad White, that didn't affect the Leonard Fournette believer. When he came in at 260 pounds, that didn't affect the Leonard Fournette believer. The fact that he's dropping LBs so quickly that's negative for his body and puts him very susceptible positioning for injury right now in camp, that doesn't affect people. So it's a little crazy when people don't adjust and adapt. That's what I would probably say I would recommend most. Let's go to the phone lines real quick before we jump on. I'm going to jump on IG in a little bit too.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Call into the show. Dial 602 NFL. Dong.
Call into the show. Let's do it live. Topic at hand. I'll put it on screen. We'll take a few calls. Your boy Smitty's then going to jump on IG and talk about all this Niner stuff going on, because I do a Niner show on Instagram. So you guys can join me over there. We'll be hyping up Trey Lance. We'll be hyping up everything. We'll be doing that in just a little bit. Jamar Chase has been dropping the football. Says, yeah, sure he has. Keep telling people that, please. Scooby-Doo says, what does Scooby-Doo say? Thank you for the super chat. In a dynasty startup, do I take Chubb or Dobbins? You take Chubb. Dobbins coming back from an ACL tear, no thank you. You can trade Dobbins. Or I'm sorry, you can trade Chubb for more than you could trade an injured Dobbins right now. But trust your gut. It's definitely arguable, I suppose, but I'm taking Nick Chubb. Not to mention just to win now, but I'm taking Nick Chubb over that situation. Let me see if there's any more voice messages from my people. This is another one from Kyle.
Smitty, if there was a draft for takeout food, who's your number one pick?
Takeout food. Ooh, that's a good one. I suppose I would venture toward... I suppose I would venture toward... right now, my kind of go-to... Well, Cheesecake Factory, if I could get it delivered, you know. I think, a steak of some kind sounds pretty darn good right now. I might do steak tonight, by the way. That sounds really good. I think, another good delivery option could be Shake Shack. That's kind of a go-to right now. We're talking about delivery. We're not talking about gourmet, so I'm trying to think of something that maybe some of you have heard too. That would definitely be one of them. Dial into the show. Let's go.
Call into the show. Dial 602 NFL. Dong.
Don't ruin ADP. Chase dropped passes in camp, so don't want to hear about Fournette dropping passes in camp. Oh, is that why that was said? Okay, I got you. Chase wasn't. There was more so a comment being talked about. Chase said that the football is harder to catch in the pros. Someone took that and ran with it. Look, Brian, you're right in the sense that sometimes news can be ignorable, but I think my point is that if you're hearing it from a source you trust, and I'm not saying everything, bro, I'm going to be so wrong about so many things. That's the nature of what we do. But like, if you do respect certain sources that are telling you, hey, stay away from Fournette, he's a big risk, and then negative news comes out about it. It's different than there was nothing negative on Jamar Chase, and people took bad information and ran with it and started worrying about him. It's just a big difference. And on top of that, it comes down to how you feel about the player. You see Leonard Fournette as a monster. I see him as a disappointment. And we're not going to ever change each other's opinions. So a piece of negative news may be irrelevant, and you're going to be able to weed that out and say, I'm not letting it affect me. Fournette's going to be the man, and Fournette becomes the man. Me, on the other hand, I see Fournette as a disappointment. So a piece of news like he's dropping footballs and comes in at 260 lbs and disappoints his entire coaching staff. And they draft a running back to replace him in PPR work, because I heard from multiple sources, your boy Smitty has heard from multiple sources, that that Tom Brady wanted to solve this pass catching problem. Okay, did I answer Collusion's question? Oh God, I didn't. Collusion, I'm sorry. Russian, you still here? Smitty, curious on why you were so high on Lance. High school stats are 10 game played, 53.5% passer rating, rushing 53 yards average, 19 games in college, 65% passer rating. Not saying you're wrong, just wondering. Collusion, are you still here? I'm sorry about not answering the super chat question embedded in your super chat. Let's see here. Let's see if Russian's still here. Number one, he didn't play quarterback until he got into college. Okay, so we can't use high school. Number two, if you look at his stats, bro, he didn't have a lot of weapons to throw to, right? Thank you, Russian. I appreciate your super chat, by the way. One more standing ovation. Let's do this right. Let's start this over.
Let's go, mashed potatoes!
Yeah, buddy. Thank you, Collusion, for the super chat. Let's start this over. He didn't have a lot of good talent pulling in footballs, bro, so he had to do a lot with a little. When you look at the others, like you shot out a couple stats here that look a little disappointing, but what about the 42 touchdowns to 0 INTs? That was left out. What about the fact that he won the Walter Payton and Jerry Rice awards? How can you do that if you're not effective in college? He literally was one of the most impressive players in college football at his level, and he won the Walter Payton and Jerry Rice awards, and also had 42 touchdowns, 14 rushing, and 0 INTs. So those every stat you give me, I can give you stats that are, I think, impressive. So you gave me some stats you think are impressive or not impressive. I give you stats that I think are very impressive. On top of that, my eyeballs. You can't take away what my gut tells me with any kind of stat. And for me, I look at Trey Lance and I see Patrick Mahomes when Patrick Mahomes wasn't Patrick Mahomes. Now, a lot of people are going to laugh at that, but you don't have the right to laugh at that, because when I said Patrick Mahomes would be the next Peyton Manning, I got the same eyeball emojis, the same. You can't compare Pat Mahomes, who hasn't even played a snap yet, to Peyton Manning. Do you know how many people said that exact phrase to me? You can't compare, what is this guy, Patrick Mahomes? Mahomes or Mahomes? Mahomes? Smitty, you can't compare this guy, Patrick Mahomes, to Peyton Manning. Are you a moron? That's what people told me, bro. That's what people told me. So I have every right and ability, and not saying collusion, you're saying I don't, to make cases for players becoming absolute monsters if I have a track record of doing so. I reserve the right. Not to mention, even if I was wrong a lot, let's just say I did badly at that, which I don't, then it's my show, so I'm going to do it. So I know people are going to, not you, Collusion, but people are going to tell me I can't do it. I hear it all the time. You can't compare. I can. I did, and I'll continue to. Over and over and over. Lance is going to explode. Lance is going to be a monster. Lance is going to be a top 5 to 7 quarterback. Jalen Hurts is going to be a top 5 to 7 quarterback. These are running monsters. They can rush for well over 600, 700 yards, punch in well over 6 to 7 TDs, and everybody's going to be very, very down and depressed when they see what time it is entering week 1 on when these guys are absolutely monsters. Anyway, appreciate everybody for being here. This was an hour and a half show, and I'm heading over to Instagram now. You can catch me over there. We are live Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday here on the Fantasy Football Show. Make sure you watch all of the videos I posted today. I posted one video yesterday on who could be the surprise wide receiver 1 that isn't likely to be ranked anywhere near the top 3 wide receivers, and it was Deebo and CeeDee Lamb. Go watch why those could be the dark horse. And it's kind of a fun video, so I'm not expecting them to be number 1. I'm just trying to pull the 2 most likely options. And then go check out the St. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown. We'll do an extension here.
Show extended additional 2
Thanks,
minutes.
Kenny, for the super chat. Amon-Ra St. Brown, that video is up. Why he could be a top 12 wide receiver in 2022. Top 12 wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Low-end wide receiver 1 is basically what I'm saying with that. Amon-Ra St. Brown was the number 2 wide receiver in all of fantasy football from week 13 to week 17. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 weeks, Mom. Look, I can count. 5 weeks, Amon-Ra St. Brown. In that 5 weeks, he was the number 2 wide receiver. Even if you narrow it down to week 14 to 17, then you narrow it down to week 15 to 17, 16 to 17, and just week 17. He never leaves the top 4. He's in the top 4 any way you shrink down that time period. That's amazing. That means that one game isn't an anomaly that drags him up. It's literally any combination.
In 1 minute.
And this dude was in the top 12. Or, I mean, top 2. Top 4. But he could be top 12. 1, 2, 3, 12. Thank you, S4G. Appreciate you. Great show, says Frank. Thank you, Frank. Russian Collusion, again, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody. Rock out. Thank you, Terry, for moderating. Thank you to my moderators. Thank you, Blackbeard. Thanks, James Conklin, for being in the house representing. Thank you to all my people that are YouTube exclusive memberships. That link is pinned in the chat. Conklin, Brian, thank you, Brian, for being a YouTube member and having thick skin in terms of the Fournette stuff. Appreciate you, Scott, Swaggy, Kayla, all of you. Blackbeard, Russian Collusion.
Show ends in 10 seconds.
All of you. Terry, thank you guys all. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. unless news breaks. I go live whenever news breaks. Get on over to thefantasyfootballshow.com.
Goodbye.
Go, 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 go. Oh, we'll probably be back for mock drafts tonight, or at least a late night Q&A. I don't know for mock drafting tonight. I've had a real long 2 days live streaming. I've been just live streaming like a maniac. So if I come back tonight and I do a Q&A out on the streets of Tempe or Phoenix, that'll be good. We'll have a good time. But I may not mock. I may mock. I don't know. Sometimes I get a little tired of mock drafting. I love talking football. You know, and it's not like you can't talk football and mock draft at the same time, but, you know, we mock draft more than anybody anyway. So, 3 supers missed. Rock out super above. Okay, let's extend this show.
Show extended additional.
And let's hit these
minutes.
supers. Who did I miss? Scooby-Doo. I answered that one. Russian Collusion, I answered that one. Sometimes I go on rants, man. I appreciate my people reminding me of the super chats. Like, without you guys, sometimes I wouldn't see this stuff. Rock Out says, what did you learn most psychology about people thinking? I did answer that one. I think just recency bias is a big one. You know, like, what have you seen lately? Contract extension for McLaurin. Oh, okay, McLaurin's good. Ron says, Godwin ADP going to rise too, but I bet now they cleared him for practice. I got to that super chat. What super chats are you saying that I missed? Scotty, do we think Carson retiring changed the ADP? I got to that question. What did I miss, Rockout? I feel like I got all those super chats, buddy.
Show ends in 1 minute.
R. James. And Kenny. Which ones did I miss? I got Scoobies. Chubb versus Dobbins, I answered. Yeah, I got all those. I take Chubb. Guys, get on over to, if I missed anybody, if you did super chat, please, if you super chatted and I didn't get to you, please ask it again in the comments and say, Smitty, I super chatted, you didn't answer. Don't cry wolf or fake it. But I'll answer it. I'll answer anyone's question anyway. But let me know so I can take care of you. Get on over to
Show ends in 10 seconds.
thefantasyfootballshow.com to get your one-on-one text advice and play DFS Underdog Fantasy. Link in the description. Promo code Smitty.
Goodbye.
Appreciate you all. Yeah, I answered the Chubb. I'd take Chubb. I think you can get more for him in trade right now if you traded him right away versus JK. And I don't trust JK. And he's in a running back by committee. And his quarterback vultures touchdowns. Yeah, don't worry. We mock draft more than anybody. That's why sometimes I don't mock draft every night. But we'll see. Maybe tonight. I'm with Brian. Mock draft gets boring. Mock drafting gets boring. I think it's good to do a couple times a week. I just don't know if we're going to do it every single night. My boy Raj in the building. I'm almost tempted to send him a link to have him come on real quick. Raj, are we going live on Instagram right now? I think we're going live on Instagram, right? Let's go, boy. Let's go talk Trey Lance, baby. All right, guys. I will see you over on IG. Trey Lance era has begun. I'm ready, Raj. You ready, Raj? Are we going live on Instagram, Raj? Go follow my boy, Raj. Go follow him on Instagram. He's got his YouTube linked in his bio as well. Go follow him on YouTube. All right, we're going to go live on IG. Okay. Ending it right now. See you all on Instagram. Follow me over there. Later.